Alright, welcome back to the channel, everybody. On this episode, we're going to be pulling the motor out of the Bronco, pairing it with the T5 and swinging it into the Mustang. We're checking for fitment. I don't see any potential issues with this T5. It's a relatively small transmission, but I'd rather find out now before it's too late. It is cold, it is wet, I am going to be miserable, hopefully for your enjoyment. So thank you for tagging along, and let's get started. Alright, pulling the motor out of this thing, got accessories, got to pull a sniper unit off, bell housing bolts, torque converter, headers actually have to come off before, and then the engine mounts, and then that's it. Slap the plate on, pull it out, be done. So yeah, I'm going to give you an overhead view. I think it might be a skosh better. Alright, everything's disconnected, headers are hanging off to the side. I'm gonna have to watch this one. There's not a lot of room between the frame rail and the block, so it's kind of sitting on the porcelains of the spark plugs, so gotta watch that. But bell housing is all disconnected, torque converter is disconnected, starter's out. All I gotta do is bring the hoist in, hook up, pull out. And a smart thing to do would be remove the hood. I'm not gonna do that. There you have it, she's out. One messy, dirty 408. 351. Anyway, I gotta find. There it is. Put it on the stand real quick. Go through a couple things, and then bolt that up to it. Alright, well, welcome back to day 2 of what should have only been a one-day project. Got the engine out of the Bronco last night and then got lazy, decided I was done. So here we are, engine's on the stand, flex plate is removed. The oil pan on this will not work with the cross member in the Mustang. So I do have a oil pan from the previous 351 Windsor that was in this before. It is dirty. I'll have to clean it out before I install it, but it'll work for this application and saves me a little bit of money. The other thing that I realized last night that I forgot to do was order engine mounts. So I went on AutoZone's website and ordered some OEM style 289 engine mounts, which will bolt right up to this 351, hopefully. And they'll be here tomorrow. So today's progress will be very minimal. I'll get the oil pan cleaned out and probably swapped over. I know the oil pickup isn't going to work, so I'm just going to remove it for now, because I am going to end up going through this whole thing before it gets permanently installed. And then tomorrow is when you'll see me again with this thing prepared to go into the car. One other thing that I am going to look into while I have this temporarily stabbed into the car is the intake manifold. So the engine compartment in the Mustangs are not very tall, so I could already be running into hood clearance issues with the current intake manifold that I have on here, which is a Victor Jr. intake. But a couple years ago, I got a killer deal on a Super Victor intake from a guy on Facebook Marketplace. So I'm going to attempt to see if I can get that one to fit. It's a longer intake runner, or longer intake runners. So it'll have a higher RPM range. It might perform better, it might perform worse, but it's taller, and who doesn't like a taller engine? The only downside is I might run into hood clearance issues. So test that out tomorrow as well. But yeah, next time you see me, which will be a couple seconds for you, 24 hours for me, is engine and trans will be paired, oil pan will be swapped over, engine mounts will be installed, and we'll be ready to swing this thing in the car. Until then, I'm gonna go drink some coffee and get some sleep. All right, welcome back to day 3 of the 1-day engine and transmission test fit video. Got the motor mounts in today. They came in a little bit later in the day than I was expecting, so I'm actually getting a late start on this, but that's not going to change the outcome. We are going to get this engine and transmission into the car, see if we have any fitment issues. Got to get these installed, pair the engine and trans, and swing this thing in. So, engine mount's pretty simple. Just 2 bolts. Got 2 standoffs there. Throw these up, one on each side. There's a possibility these are going to be too thick for this application. This was originally for a 289, which would have had, what was that, 8.2 inch deck height. Pretty sure it's the same as the 302s. So a lot of, let's say I have hood clearance issues, I can either modify these, basically make them solid mounts, get rid of the rubber in the middle and just weld them together, or I can get actual swap mounts that'll be shorter in height. But there's also a possibility they could just bolt right up and be perfectly fine inside. So we're gonna try these out first. If not, we can go a different route. These weren't too terribly expensive, so. And as you can see, I changed out the oil pan. I know I think I said that earlier, but just to give you an idea what the differences are. This is the truck pan down here. Big rear sump. And then the new conversion pan. I don't know what you'd call this. I don't know what it would have come in a stock application, but it's got 2 sumps. There's actually 2 drain lugs, so But this I know will fit inside the engine compartment because this is what was originally there. So swapping this was fairly simple. Right now I don't have a gasket in here and there's only a couple bolts holding it on, but it'll work for now. Now we just got to get this engine off the stand and throw it on the transmission. All right, engine and trans are together. I know I don't have the block off plate or that spacer that goes between here. That's only 60 thousandths of an inch thick, so it's not going to cause that much of a difference in shifter location. I do have one coming in. Summit Racing has shipped it already, but it won't be here till Monday, so I wanted to get this swung in anyway. Another thing is, so I'm trying to use what I have on hand as much as possible. So these bolts actually came out of the Bronco, and that had an E4OD, not a T5. I guess the E4ODs, the flange here is thicker, so these upper two bolts, they're way too long, and they would stop, you know, a good half an inch. So they're a good half inch too long. So I'll deal with that at a later date when I pull this thing out and put a clutch in it. So here we go. We're going to swing it in the car. All right, so it's in, kind of. Currently running into a problem with getting the front half of that engine mount to line up. I don't know why, but this at least gives us an idea of location on everything. So, as I was saying earlier, I keep losing light. Anyway, you can still see it. As I was saying earlier, I was probably going to run into some hood clearance issues. And as you can see, I have a hood clearance issue. So I have two options. Option number one, I get one of those cheap flat metal hoods. And then they're from, I say cheap, they're not that cheap. But it's cheaper than buying a cowl induction hood. usually. And then I cut it and make my own cowl induction hood. Option number 2 is I buy a cowl induction hood. I don't want something massive because this isn't a drag car. I'm not really looking for that look. I'm looking for pro touring kind of esque. So I don't know, we're gonna have to address that. The other option is these mounts, modifying them so they sit lower, basically making them a solid mount. Now that'll drop the whole engine down to some degree, but then I start running into issues with, actually, header clearance is going to be tight no matter what. So that might not matter. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at with the engine location. It's going to stay for now. I'll have to pull it back out. Separator plate for the transmission, which will just push the transmission back 60 thousandths of an inch. But as you can see, shifter location is perfect. I don't have to adjust or change anything here. So that's a positive. One last thing. I did look at the driveline. Nice part is the yoke for the drive shaft on the transmission side. Let's see, can I get under here? It does spline perfectly fine. Problem is, it needs to get shortened by a lot. And I mean 2 inches, 3 inches. I got full spline engagement, and it's pressed up against the seal there, which is not something you want. It's how you break stuff. And then let me crawl under here. And then that's how much space I got. So I'm gonna have to do something about that. But that's a problem for later. But at least now I know it's a problem. All right. Thank you for sticking it out this far. This is probably going to be the longest video that I have put on my channel. So if you've made it to here, you're a trooper. Appreciate it. We did get a lot done. Did get the engine out of the Bronco and stabbed in here, as well as the T5. It was a battle, but we got it. This is only temporary, however. There are some things that need to be addressed, one of which being hood clearance, the other one being the driveline issue. It's getting cold. Anyway, let's make this quick. Hood clearance can be addressed 2 ways. I can do cowl induction, or I can modify the engine mounts. I don't know which one I'm going to do yet. The driveline, I'm going to see if I can find a local shop to shorten it. Next on the agenda for this, I've got to get the rest of the body stripped. I need to get primer on it. In order for that to happen though, I need to get an air compressor. I have a small little pancake one that I bought when I was doing some renovations in the house. It's not going to be enough to paint a car. So I'll have to get that squared away first, and then that'll be probably the next video that comes out is spraying primer on this thing. So if you want to watch that, hit that like, subscribe, and hit the notification button so you get notified when that comes out. Other than that, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me and making it this far. Let's see how much further we can take it.